The grand assembly of the collective glittered like a jeweled crown in space, its crystalline spires housing representatives from 10,000 civilizations. Supreme Director Ixal, their tentacles arranged in the formal pattern of legislative authority, surveyed the gathering with all four of their primary eyes. The chamber buzzed with anticipation. Today's vote would be historic. Esteemed members of the collective, Ixal's voice resonated through the neural networks connecting all present. We gather to address the matter of Sol 3, designation, Earth. Our surveillance indicates they've achieved preliminary spaceflight and detected our presence. The integration protocol must now be initiated. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing Earth's cities, military bases, and space installations. The assembled representatives chittered and hummed with amusement at the primitive technology on display. Ambassador Zix of the Silicon Mines Collective pulsed with derision. Their most advanced quantum computer barely matches our children's educational units. Integration will be trivial. They still burn hydrocarbons for energy, added Representative Morn of the Energy Ascendancy, their plasma form flickering with mirth. We found similar species in 30 other systems. All now serve productively in our resource extraction operations. Ixal raised a tentacle for silence. While their technology appears primitive, our deep analysis reveals concerning patterns. They progress faster than any species we've encountered. Observe their advancement from atmospheric flight to space travel. The displays shifted, showing a rapid progression of human aviation history. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their gravity fields. 50 planetary rotations from first flight to orbital capabilities, noted Security Director Venn, their crystalline form pulsing with concern. And their information networks, chaotic, yet remarkably resilient. They call it the Internet. Precisely why we must act now, Ixal continued. Our models predict they'll achieve viable FTL travel within 2 decades. An unacceptable scenario. The integration protocol will ensure their capabilities serve the collective rather than threaten it. Unknown to the Assembly, 20 kilometers beneath Earth's surface, in a facility known only as Deep Brook, Dr. Sarah Chen watched their entire discussion with a slight smile. The quantum entanglement tap her team had placed on the collective's communications network performed flawlessly. They're really going to do it, her colleague, Dr. James Rodriguez, remarked, sipping his coffee. After all our attempts to appear harmless. Sarah nodded, her fingers dancing across holographic controls that made the Assembly's technology look like children's toys. Record everything. The President will want details for the Emergency Response Council. Back in the Assembly, the voting had begun. One by one, representatives signaled their approval for Earth's integration. Green indicators lit up across the chamber. 10,000 species, 10,000 votes in favor of subjugating humanity. Motion carries unanimously, Ixal announced with satisfaction. The integration fleet will deploy within 1 stellar cycle. Earth's resistance should be minimal. Our analysis suggests their strongest defense is something called mutual assured destruction. Primitive nuclear weapons. Ambassador Zix pulsed agreement. Their entertainment broadcasts indicate widespread fear of invasion. They'll likely surrender once they see our fleet's true scale. In Deep Brook, Sarah opened a secure channel to military commands worldwide. Operation Looking Glass is now active. They took the bait. All that tech we've been hiding. Time to show them what humanity's really been up to. James grinned. Should we tell them about the Alcubierre drives, the quantum phase shields, the antimatter production facilities? No, Sarah replied, watching the Assembly dissolve into self-congratulation. Let's keep those as a surprise. After all, they voted unanimously. It's only fair we give them a unanimous response. The Assembly's celebrations continued, none of its members noticing that the human satellites they dismissed as primitive were quietly mapping every weakness in their defenses, none of them realizing that humanity's apparent technological inferiority was the result of decades of careful misdirection. They would learn soon enough. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since they detected the first collective probe ship 70 years ago. Now, as the assembly celebrated their impending victory, Earth's hidden fleets began powering up in bases throughout the solar system. The collective had just voted for war. They just didn't know it yet. Fleet Admiral Vex stood on the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, pride of the integration fleet, as 10,000 ships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The massive vessel's quantum crystals hummed with power, its hull gleaming with energy patterns that could deflect anything short of a neutron star's direct blast. Status report. Vex commanded, their cybernetic enhancements processing tactical data from across the fleet. No detection of our arrival. Admiral, the sensor chief reported. Their primitive radar systems are still focused on their orbital debris. Humans appear to be broadcasting something called cat videos across their information networks. Vex's mandibles clicked in amusement. Maintain formation. Begin standard intimidation approach. Let them see us coming. The fear alone should ensure minimal resistance. The integration fleet moved forward in perfect unity, a maneuver practiced countless times across 100 conquered systems. As they passed Mars' orbit, Vex opened a channel to all ships. Remember, minimal casualties. The collective wants their infrastructure and population intact for processing. Standard shock end. Warning signals exploded across every ship's sensor array. The void between Mars and Earth suddenly blazed with energy signatures as massive structures simply appeared, dropping advanced cloaking fields that had rendered them completely invisible. Impossible. Vex's cybernetics struggled to process the data. Those are Nexus-class defense platforms. Humans can't have that technology. They're still arguing about whether their planet is flat. Dr. Sarah Chen's face appeared on every screen in the fleet, her expression one of calm amusement. Actually, we started those flat Earth arguments to keep your observation posts distracted. You'd be amazed how much advanced technology you can build while everyone thinks you're busy debating basic astronomy. The defense platforms opened fire, but instead of conventional energy weapons, they unleashed something that made Vex's scientific officers scream in terror: gravity lances, weapons that shouldn't exist outside theoretical physics. Fascinating things, black holes. Sarah continued as the beams sliced through ships whose shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not localized gravitational singularities. Once you figure out how to manipulate them on a quantum scale, they make excellent weapons. We really should thank you. Watching your ships taught us so much. The Eternal Dominion shuddered as nearby vessels were torn apart. Vex watched in horror as a ship 3 times their size was compressed into a sphere the size of a marble before vanishing completely. Full retreat. Vex commanded. Emergency jump tow. About those fancy FTL drives, Sarah interrupted. We've quantum locked your entire fleet in normal space. Going somewhere. From behind Mars, Earth's own fleet emerged. Their ships looked wrong to Vex's experienced eye. No standardization, no uniform design philosophy. Some appeared to phase between dimensions, others seemed to bend light itself around their hulls. A few appeared to be made of something that Vex's sensors insisted didn't actually exist. You see, Sarah explained, as human vessels surrounded the rapidly disintegrating integration fleet. While you were watching our rocket launches and satellite deployments, you missed what we were building in other dimensions. Amazing what you can accomplish when everyone underestimates you. This is impossible, Vex managed to say. Your species still uses fossil fuels. You argue about renewable energy. Sarah laughed. Oh, those energy debates. Wonderful cover for our zero-point reactors. Really sells the whole primitive species act when half your population argues about wind farms while you're actually harvesting energy from quantum vacuum fluctuations. The human ships began systematic dismantling of the integration fleet's remaining defenses. Their weapons weren't just advanced. They were elegant, efficient, and operated on principles that Vex's most advanced science couldn't comprehend. Here's what happens next. Sarah's tone turned serious. Your fleet surrenders. Then we're going to have a long chat about the collective's habit of integrating other species. I think it's time for some policy changes, don't you? As Vex watched their mighty fleet reduced to scattered debris and disabled vessels, a terrible realization dawned. The collective hadn't been observing a primitive species preparing for integration. They'd been watching humanity prepare for this exact moment, building weapons and defenses specifically designed to counter collective technology. "Send the surrender signal," Vex whispered. "Already done," their communications officer replied. The humans responded with something called a thumbs-up emoji. They're asking if we'd like to order pizza. Sarah Chen was definitely still smiling. "Don't worry, Admiral. We're not like you. We don't integrate other species. We'd much rather have a conversation. After we've established some ground rules about galactic citizenship, of course." Somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity's hidden strength had finally revealed itself. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Grand Assembly Chamber had lost its luster. Gone were the elegant crystalline displays and sophisticated neural interfaces. Instead, emergency power cast harsh shadows across faces that hadn't known fear in centuries. Supreme Director Ixal's tentacles twisted in agitation as reports flooded in from across collective space. "How?" they demanded, watching another colonial system go dark. "How are they moving so fast?" The answer materialized in the center of the chamber, a holographic projection of Dr. Sarah Chen, now speaking as Earth's ambassador to the collective. The casual way her image appeared, bypassing all security protocols, said more about human technological capabilities than any weapon could. "Your jump gate network is impressive," she remarked, studying a datapad. "Very efficient, very predictable, very hackable." Security Director Ven's crystalline form pulsed with rage. "Our quantum encryption was based on mathematical principles we solved centuries ago," Sarah interrupted. "We just didn't publish the solutions, kept them in a folder labeled cat memes on our public networks. You really should have paid more attention to those." Across the galaxy, humanity's counterstrike unfolded with precision that bordered on artistry. The collective had built an infrastructure of jump gates, automated defense systems, and quantum communication networks, all now turned against them by human ingenuity. In the Centauri sector, Admiral Marcus Wong watched from the bridge of the ESS Prometheus as his fleet emerged from a captured jump gate. The ships of the 4th Integration Corps, caught completely off guard, didn't even have time to raise shields. "This is Earth Defense Force," he broadcast. "Your weapons are offline, your engines are locked, and your communications are limited to our approved channels. Let's talk about surrender terms." The collective ships, their crews trained for conquest rather than defense, had no protocols for this situation. Their mighty vessels, each capable of subjugating an entire planetary system, hung helpless in space as human ships, a fraction of their size, systematically disabled their systems. "Fascinating design choices," Marcus commented, reviewing scans of the disabled vessels. "All your technology assumes you'll be the attacker, never the defender. Did it never occur to you that someone might turn your own tactics against you?" Back in the assembly chamber, Sarah's hologram walked among the panicking representatives. "You know what your biggest mistake was? Not the underestimation of our technology, not the vote to integrate us. It was assuming that because we fight among ourselves, we couldn't unite." She gestured, and new holographic displays showed human fleets advancing across collective space. Each task force represented a different nation on Earth, but they moved with coordinated precision that spoke of years of joint planning and preparation. Those conflicts you monitored, our political disputes, our cultural differences, they taught us adaptation, innovation, how to think differently. While your civilization sought uniformity, we thrived on diversity. In the Orion Arm, Commander Aisha Patel led a fleet of ships that seemed to ignore physics itself. Their quantum phase drives, developed by combining theoretical models from a dozen different human cultures, allowed them to bypass conventional space-time constraints. Target their command and control centers, she ordered. Non-lethal weapons only. We're here to end their ability to conquer, not to become conquerors ourselves. The human weapons were precise, elegant, and showed a disturbing understanding of collective psychology. Cultural centers found their neural networks flooded with human entertainment. Thousands of years of art, music, and literature demonstrating humanity's creative potential. Military installations discovered their quantum computers running simulations of human history, showing countless examples of supposedly superior forces defeated by innovative defenders. Your civilization has spent millennia perfecting the art of conquest, Sarah continued, addressing the assembly. We spent that time perfecting the art of resistance. Every invasion in our history taught us something. Every conflict showed us new ways to defend, adapt, and overcome. A collective battle group in the Carina sector surrendered after their advanced AI systems were overwhelmed by what humans called mimetic warfare. Information packets designed to force artificial intelligences to contemplate philosophical paradoxes until they chose to shut down rather than continue fighting. Did you think those conspiracy theories about hidden military bases were random? Sarah asked the stunned assembly. They were cover stories, thousands of them, layered so deep that finding the real secrets was like trying to find a specific drop of water in an ocean. Supreme Director Ixal, watching their mighty civilization unravel in the face of human ingenuity, finally understood. Every human weakness they'd identified had been carefully crafted misdirection. Every flaw in Earth's defenses had been a trap waiting to be sprung. What do you want? They asked, their voice barely a whisper. Sarah's hologram smiled. The same thing we've always wanted, peaceful coexistence. But first, we're going to make some changes to how the collective operates. No more integration of other species. No more conquest disguised as civilization. And just to ensure compliance. She gestured again, and every representative's neural interface displayed the same message. Their home systems were now under human protection. The era of collective expansion was over. Humanity hadn't just defeated the integration fleet. They'd rewritten the rules of galactic society itself. And they were just getting started. The galactic market, once the crown jewel of collective commerce, had transformed beyond recognition. Where austere trading houses once conducted business with mechanical precision, human merchants now set up colorful stalls, selling everything from quantum-enhanced coffee beans to AI-generated art. The chaos of it all made former Supreme Director Ixal's tentacles twitch. They're letting anyone trade here, Ixal muttered to Security Director Venn as they watched a human merchant demonstrate something called a quantum fidget spinner to an enthusiastic crowd of young collective citizens. No regulations, no control, no artificial barriers to innovation, interrupted Admiral Marcus Wong, appearing beside them with the unsettling suddenness that had become a human trademark. Amazing what happens when you let people trade ideas freely instead of restricting them to approved patterns. Above them, holographic advertisements shifted through multiple dimensions, displaying products that shouldn't have been possible. A group of Silicon Mind collective members eagerly purchased devices that humans called quantum neural enhancers, technology that the collective had deemed too dangerous for civilian use. But the safety protocols, Venn protested, their crystalline form flickering with distress. The carefully maintained technological hierarchies. You mean the artificial restrictions that kept other species dependent on the collective? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Funny how quickly progress happens when you stop suppressing it. In orbit, the newly established Earth trading station hummed with activity. Ships from 1,000 species, many of whom had never been allowed direct contact under collective rule, exchanged goods and ideas. Human diplomats moved among them, not to control but to facilitate, their neural translators allowing free communication between any species. Dr. Sarah Chen, now Earth's senior ambassador, hosted a delegation from former integration fleet admirals in her office aboard the station. The room's quantum architecture shifted to accommodate each species' environmental needs automatically, a casual display of technological superiority that wasn't lost on her visitors. Your civilization's rapid advancement. Former Admiral Vex began carefully. We've analyzed the data. You didn't just hide your technology. You developed it specifically to counter our capabilities. Sarah smiled, pouring tea from a pot that somehow kept each cup at its drinker's preferred temperature. We had excellent teachers. Every probe you sent, every scan you made, showed us exactly what we needed to prepare for. But the inefficiencies, another former admiral protested. Your markets are chaos. Your development programs have no central direction. Your ships don't even follow standardized designs. That's called adaptation, Sarah replied. Each ship is designed to evolve, to learn, to change, like humanity itself. Speaking of which, she gestured, and a holographic display showed the latest human innovation. Ships that could interface directly with the quantum fabric of spacetime. Throughout collective space, human influence spread not through force, but through something far more potent: ideas. Species that had been relegated to resource extraction discovered they had unique insights into quantum mechanics. Civilizations deemed too primitive for advanced technology developed revolutionary approaches to dimensional engineering. Commander Aisha Patel, overseeing the dissolution of another former Integration Corps facility, received a priority message from Earth Defense Command. The collective's former subject species were developing their own technologies, their own innovations, exactly as humanity had hoped. We're not here to replace one empire with another, she explained to her staff. We're here to show them what's possible when you stop letting others define your limitations. In the former assembly chamber, now repurposed as an interspecies cultural center, Ixal watched young collective citizens eagerly attending human lectures on everything from quantum physics to artistic expression. The worst part wasn't that humanity had defeated them. It was that they'd made it look easy. Your species, Ixal said to a nearby human diplomat, you could have conquered us completely. Why didn't you? The diplomat, a young woman named Maya Patel, laughed. Because that's what you would have done. We're not interested in conquering the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, grow with it. Speaking of which, she handed Ixal a data crystal. Some of our scientists have ideas about improving your environmental systems. No charge, no obligations, just possibilities. That was the true power of humanity, Ixal realized. Not their superior technology or military might, but their ability to turn enemies into partners, to transform fear into curiosity. They hadn't just defeated the collective. They'd shown them a completely different way to exist. In Earth's diplomatic offices, Sarah Chen reviewed reports from across former collective space. Species that had once been bitter enemies were now trading partners. Technologies that had been restricted were being freely shared and improved upon. The galaxy was transforming, one idea at a time. It's fascinating, her AI assistant noted. They still don't fully understand how thoroughly you predicted their actions. Sarah smiled, watching a feed of former collective engineers excitedly discussing improvements to human designs. The best victory isn't the one where you defeat your enemy, she said. It's the one where you make them question why they were your enemy in the first place. 5 years after the failed invasion of Earth, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The newly established Galactic Concordat held its first General Assembly in a space station that perfectly embodied humanity's influence, a structure that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its architecture adapting to each species' needs and perceptions. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, addressing representatives from over 10,000 civilizations. Unlike the old collective chamber, there was no hierarchy here. Former conquest fleets now served as peacekeepers. Former slave species sat as equals with their one-time masters. 5 years ago, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly in each species' native language through quantum translation fields. We faced a choice. We could have responded to attempted conquest with conquest of our own. Instead, We chose a different path. On display screens that each viewer perceived through their own cultural lens, images showed the transformation. The rigid trade routes of the collective had given way to a dynamic network of cultural and economic exchange. Species that had been deemed too primitive for advanced technology were now contributing revolutionary insights to quantum physics. Admiral Marcus Wong, commanding the Joint Peacekeeping Fleet, watched from his bridge as ships from formerly hostile species conducted joint training exercises. The vessels were as diverse as their crews. Some moved through conventional space, others phased between dimensions, all working together in harmony. "It's not perfect," he commented to his mixed-species bridge crew, "but it's real progress." In what had once been restricted collective research facilities, joint scientific teams made breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the old regime. A Silicon Mind Collective member worked alongside a former primitive species, their combined perspectives solving problems that had stumped the collective for centuries. Commander Aisha Patil, now heading the Concordat's technological exchange program, reviewed the latest innovations. The key was never the technology itself. She explained to a group of students from across the galaxy. It was learning to see things from different perspectives. Former Supreme Director Ixel, now serving as their species representative to the Concordat, found themselves actually enjoying the chaos of it all. They watched as a human artist collaborated with a crystalline entity to create a sculpture that existed in 5 dimensions, something that would have been forbidden under their old rules. "We thought we were so advanced," they remarked to Sarah during a diplomatic reception. "But we had stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped dreaming." Sarah smiled, watching young members of various species excitedly discussing their latest projects. "That's why we didn't just defeat the collective. We helped transform it. Real civilization isn't about conquering or controlling. It's about growing together." Throughout the galaxy, the changes were profound. The former integration fleets, their weapons transformed into tools for exploration, pushed the boundaries of known space. But instead of seeking conquest, they sought knowledge, new perspectives, new ways of understanding the universe. Maya Patel, now a senior diplomat, sat in a conference room with representatives from species that had once been bitter enemies. They weren't just discussing trade or technology. They were sharing stories, art, music, dreams. The quantum translation fields caught not just words but concepts, emotions, ways of thinking that had once been alien to each other. "That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy," she told her colleagues. "Not our technology or our military strength, but our ability to show that differences don't have to mean division." In Earth's primary quantum research facility, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. James Rodriguez reviewed data from across the Concordat. Species that the collective had dismissed as primitive were making revolutionary discoveries. Civilizations that had once only copied collective technology were now innovating in ways no one had imagined possible. "The funny thing is," he said to Sarah during their weekly briefing, "we didn't really have to defeat them. We just had to show them a better way." Sarah nodded, watching feeds from across the galaxy. Former enemies working together, new discoveries being freely shared, boundaries of knowledge being pushed back through cooperation rather than competition. "That's the secret they never understood," she replied. "Real power isn't about controlling others. It's about helping them reach their full potential." As the Concordat Assembly concluded its first session, ships from 1,000 worlds lit up the space around the station in a spontaneous celebration. Their energy signatures, each unique to their civilization, combined to create a display that symbolized the new galactic order, not a enforced unity, but a harmony of differences. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their hidden technology or their military preparations. It was their fundamental belief that every species, every civilization, every individual had something valuable to contribute. They hadn't just changed the balance of power, they had redefined what power meant. And somewhere in deep space, at the edge of known territory, human exploration ships prepared to push further into the unknown. But now, they weren't alone. They went forward not as conquerors or even guardians, but as part of something greater, a galaxy that had learned to grow together, to face the unknown not with fear, but with curiosity and hope. The story of humanity's response to attempted conquest had become legend across the galaxy. But it wasn't remembered as a story of military victory. Instead, it was remembered as the moment when the galaxy learned that true strength lies not in the power to destroy or dominate, but in the courage to imagine and create a better future for all.